Good.
Okay, let's start in this case. Yeah, hello everyone. Anyway, I have to start to repeat that we are in our interdisciplinary series, international series in Romani Studies. And apparently this is the last talk in this year. And because actually the next month in June, Dafina Savic, who is originally from Serbia but living in Canada and having NGO, was supposed to present, but she is she is returning to Europe and started new work, and we decided to postpone her presentation probably to the next year. So, in this situation, this will be the last our lecture or presentation or talk during this year. And the seminar series are organized by Uppsala University, particularly IRIS, Institute for Russian and Eurasian Studies, where I'm affiliated researcher, and the Roma Foundation in Zurich, Switzerland, with the president of the organization, Stefan Lederich, and also Uppsala Forum. And today, our presenter will be Dr. Hussein Oylupinar, originally from Turkey, with a PhD, with MA in International Relations and PhD in interdisciplinary PhD in History and Cultural Studies. And Hussein has presented in last year, 2024 April, and the topic, the genocide of Roma and politics of memory in Moldova. And this time, Hussein has completely different research, and that's why I decided to invite him with the presentation, because this is our first presentation in connection to the technology and science, I mean, humanities, social sciences. And to briefly mention that Hussein was at Harvard, where he started the initiative in Turkish, Ukrainian, Crimean Tatar relations. And basically his research area is the Black Sea region, Ukraine, Crimea, and Crimean Tatars. And recently, a couple of years ago, Hussein started to be more involved in Romani studies, and I hope will continue. And this year, Hussein last year, Hussein started his new project on researching the artificial intelligence, and an application first to the texts, and recently to oral histories. And Hussein will be the instructor in the summer school organized by Harvard University, University of Alberta, Yale, and University of Wrocław in Poland, which will be in July, basically in 1 month, in the mid-July 2025. And also he exactly will be the instructor of how to apply artificial intelligence to the texts. And today, Hussein will introduce the topic, artificial intelligence in Romani studies, risk, possibilities, and a new model for oral history research. But as far as I know, he also will talk about the texts, not only oral history. So Hussein, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, everybody can hear me, I hope. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me back. It's a pleasure to be back, and also exciting to have a new topic to present. Yes, as Anna mentioned, that I have been working on AI design for a while now, and I have a number of models. I'm still working on a development of some models, and it was interesting for me to see how these models which I work on could be applied on the Roma studies, how it could be introduced or how it would function. So basically, the orientation of the initial idea is to build and put in practice and custom-made home design oral history AI tool. Here, when I talk about AI, I am not talking about ChatGPT or something with membership you get into and you upload documents and you get the AI process it. So in the jargon, it goes like black box AI design, which means we have no way to manipulate or control what is inside the software. We just interact with the chat box, like the chat GPT. So today I would like to give a little bit of horizon, just in case there might be something new I could say in terms of horizons, how AI will be impacting social science and the research methods we are using, and overall how we are functioning as scholars, researchers in the fields we are interested in, we are working in. I think it is a good time to digest the spirit of the time and act accordingly. In this sense, I just want to start by emphasizing that it is a moment when we are in where AI is starting to structure the world we are in, not just how we work, how we know, how we remember, who gets seen. This is not, I assume, and I foresee, an only technical change. It is a deeply social process. AI now plays a role in shaping what we consider knowledge, which languages are recognized, whose stories are remembered, or whose stories are told. That means we cannot just treat it as a tool. The fact that the way AI is developing calls for a thoughtful involvement. And I think we need to take an active role in shaping how these AI systems develop and make sure they reflect the full range of human voices. Just to put in a context, I will say a little. I will speak from a little bit from the future. We are in the process of the change, but in the past, the structures that shaped society were built around human-led systems: writing, publishing, teaching, governing. Language was slow, deliberate, and anchored in shared contexts. Knowledge was mediated by people, librarians, teachers, professors, editors, experts, each adding judgment, context, and accountability. And with the digital technology accelerating, there are still humans at the center. Even the early internet period, it was largely human-driven space. You could search somebody, you could find person, and you could interact personally with writing an email, and someone would search for you, and you could answer that call. But balances are shifting now. With the rise of large language models and generative AI base, our most human act, the language itself, is being handled, modeled, and reshaped by systems that do not understand what they produce, don't remember what they have seen, or don't care what impact they have. This is a change in basically how meanings are made. So we are witnessing a quiet but deep changes in the society. Information will be, and is already, not drawn from books, but from model predictions. Students are mostly now consulting with AI more than they would consult with their professors. If they want to ask something about climate change, they just go to an AI, and without opening a book, they would just access to the information. Even in labor market, applications are being filtered, or the people are allocated through designed algorithms. And applications are now started to be screened by automated systems. And language is something a machine generates first now with the AI, and humans interpret second. In terms of law, policy, and identity, this is again beginning to take shape not through debate, but through code written by people few of us will never meet. And even in visa applications nowadays, the practices starting with visa approvals by AI content check. So this change was not central planned. Basically, if we look at the history of development of AI, we can just go back to early ideas in 1950s, 1960s, where first models were put in place functioning in 1970s. So there is a faster development through 1990s. Some of us can still remember Kasparov playing chess against the computer. That was basically an AI playing with him. It was not a chess software. So AI was around not until very recently when many of us have started to get access to it in platforms like ChatGPT. So this evolution was not centrally planned. It emerged rather quickly in our lives, and without us having no ability to reflect on it. So AI is itself designed by engineers and researchers. The broader social impact, how it changes classrooms, workplaces, relationships, and identities is unfolded through complex and often unintended consequences. So the impact of these changes are now reaching far beyond the tech industry. It touches how we teach students, how we write, how we speak to each other, and now how we judge what is real, valuable, or human. Governments even now speak of AI sovereignty. The idea that a country should control its own AI infrastructure, language models, and data pipelines, rather than depending on systems built and hosted abroad. In Europe, for example, the EU is investing heavily in open source AI models and support large language model initiatives aiming to reduce dependence on United States-based technology giants. France and Germany are launching national strategies to build AI in their own languages, on their own servers, trained on culturally specific data. For these governments, AI sovereignty means protecting not just data privacy, but also cultural autonomy and regulatory power. At the same time, corporations are racing to build closed language ecosystems, AI platforms where the entire pipeline is controlled, the model, the interface, the training data, even the plugins and extensions. Tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and others are increasingly act as language monopolies where users don't see how models work, what data it was trained on, or how decisions are made. These systems become not just tools, but intermediaries between people and their own language, a shift with profound implications for access, bias, and control. In closed ecosystems, users may have access to powerful features, but they lose the ability to inspect, adapt, or translate the technology in their own terms, whether linguistically, culturally, or politically. And academia, whether ready or not, now being asked to answer a foundational question: who owns the knowledge in an AI-mediated world? Centuries now, universities served as guardians of knowledge, preserving archives, publishing peer-reviewed research, training experts who would validate truth claims. Authority was built slowly through citation, debate, institutional frameworks. But AI models don't cite sources. They mix information from across the internet, credible or not, deliver it instantly without context or accountability. Suddenly, students are turning to AI models instead of libraries. Public discourse is shaped by model outputs than by scholarly argument. corporations, not scholars, are building the systems that determine what counts as relevant, reliable, or discoverable. So this puts academia in a paradox. It still holds vast human expertise, but it is no longer the primary interface through which much of the society accesses these expertise. The question is no longer about knowledge production, but about knowledge mediation, whether universities will adapt to shape this new landscape or find themselves sidelined by systems they didn't design and cannot control. So this is a new terrain, and not everyone exists in the new terrain. Large AI models are trained on massive data sets, scrapped from books, websites, transcripts, digitized archives. But these sources reflect biases of what has already been recorded, published, and prioritized. If you are not in the data set, you are not in the system. Your language won't be translated, your expressions won't be understood, your community won't be represented in search results, summaries, or suggestions. If your language is not modeled in AI dimension, your reality isn't recognized. The tools we are told are universal. Translation models, voice assistants, educational platforms will fail at the moment they need your voice, your idiom, your history. If your history is not digitized, your memory will be forgotten twice. Once by the official record and again another time by the algorithms that will one day write our future textbooks and policies and timelines. So we are facing a technological development that shaped the future by deciding what knowledge is accessible, whose experiences are computable, who gets left out of the digital conversation altogether. This is especially dangerous, I think, for minorities, stateless peoples, linguistically marginalized groups, and no group in Europe fits this description more sharply than Roma. For centuries, Roma communities have been lived across borders, often without protections of statehood, stable documentation, institutional inclusion. Their languages have rarely been standardized, their histories often written by outsiders, and their contributions systematically excluded from official archives. In the age of AI, the structural invisibility becomes digital. And if Romani dialects aren't included in training data, AI systems will fail to understand, translate, or preserve them. If Roma experience isn't part of the encoded historical record, it won't be reflected in the tools that mediate knowledge, from school curriculum to legal database. So eventually, what was once social exclusion now risks becoming computational erasure, harder to detect, harder to challenge, far more lasting in its effects. If we focus on Roma studies, Roma communities are diverse, multilingual, transnational, connected more by shared experiences of marginalization than by formal institutions. For generations, they have adapted, resisted, and survived across changing political climates and shifting national borders. In academia, this Roma studies are often highlighted briefly in cultural events or diversity initiatives, but rarely sustained as long-term research priority. It is kind of, in one sense, folklorized, reduced to folklore through the lens of poverty without serious attention to intellectual, political, or linguistic contributions of these communities. It is underfunded Romani studies and often pushed to the margins of institutional support, more tolerated than integrated. Their languages are recorded but not modeled. Their knowledge exists in fragments, in interviews, reports, recordings, but it is not yet structured into living systems that can evolve, scale, inform the future. Without intentional, forward-looking action, a field defined, the Roma studies risks becoming a field defined more by documentation than by development. more by observation than by transformation. While significant ethnographic, historical, and linguistic work has been preserved, invaluable knowledge about Roma communities, much of the scholarship remains archived rather than activated. So they are in a static forms rather than connected to dynamic systems of learning, representation, and engagement with larger communities. The field too often involves in collection, gathering testimonies, cataloging dialects, describing the marginality of the communities without functionally building platforms that would allow natural self-loving knowledge production about the Roma communities. In the context of rapidly evolving digital infrastructures, this becomes a structural vulnerability. As other fields move toward real-time data modeling, digital archives, and algorithmic research tools, if we don't introduce new technology, artificial intelligence to Roma studies, then we are risking being technologically bypassed. Because we may not have the scaffolding, the structure that assured presence within the AI-mediated research environment, which is progressing. So here, I think it is necessary to imagine Roma studies as a space where communities, scholars, and technologies co-produce new forms of representation and agency for knowledge production.
Hussein, your presentation doesn't move.
Oh, I am too much focused in presenting. Okay. Okay. Here we have some systems which the AI models could be built upon, and it recognizes, encodes, and circulates knowledge. We can have translation models that can make Romani literature, oral histories, sacred texts available across linguistic barriers, not just to scholars, but to Roma communities themselves. We have speech-to-text technologies, which can preserve oral storytelling, oral histories, and preservation of traditions in different dialects. And then we have machine learning applications, which can transform endangered dialects into functional tools for education, documentation, civic participation, and even legal recognition, where the ability to read, write, and translate can affect access to rights and services. So I am talking about a practical application and a practical goal here. It is about preserving the knowledge and oriented towards the future with active participants in the systems that shape education, culture, and policy in the present and in the future. And this, if managed properly, will give voice to Roma communities as the modeled AI will be accessible and unmediated by the outsiders. So this is kind of the environment within which we are, as I see it, and how things are moving. And in this case, what I could offer. I already worked on a model for oral history AI tool, and presented this model this month in Edmonton in a Canadian Association convention of Canadian Association for Slavic Studies, and the model is built on Ukrainian language, and it is a model that transcribes audio-video recordings into text, and I've successfully could process data through it in narrative analysis. So I was looking at what I could do with Roma, what I could propose or provide to Roma Studies to start the discussion about how AI could be applied to our research interests. So my starting point was to look at how I could apply and construct a model that would transcribe a similar model that I worked for the Ukrainian studies. And I had difficulty there, and I shared with Stefan what I need for that model to work. Basically, a model that will work on oral history recordings, for example, an audio recording, a video recording of an interview, to be in the AI environment, to be processed in the AI environment, the AI model, the structure has to be trained on recorded interview in the original language, in Romani dialect, whichever dialect it is, and then it needs to be transcribed by a language speaker, by a human being. So I have to have the audio, the digital format, and the transcription. And then I can start with enough sampling, training the AI to learn how to listen to the recording and turn it into a writing. We don't have it. At least I couldn't find a matching video, a healthy, a clean recording, which is perfectly short or long, good enough to work on. So here, I want to start by saying that AI will not work without the original document, whichever form it is, and human-created proper transcription. If we have this clean transcription, even in small sampling bunches, we may start AI to study and learn and process the information. Eventually, it learns. But we have the starting core samples. When I have seen this problem, a challenge that needs to be dealt with, and I lacked the resources, then I looked at the origins of the AI development. So I looked at if I can build a language translating AI. And I decided I will take the case of Calderaș, translating into Romani. So I went down from the clouds of processing oral history recordings down to the core AI function, which is to translate, learn and translate language. So eventually, I will not show anything of what I built because it is all in script, and that script is, I think, around 500 lines of computing script, which makes no sense to most of us. And so eventually, what I will just describe where I got it. So I have the proof of concept neural translation model from Calderaș to Romani to English. Obviously, the approach is intentionally low cost, low resource, loyal to basically the reality of working in Romani studies. The data set consists, well, again, I will describe how this works. You have to have the Calderaș text and its transcription. And an important note, I don't speak or read any of the Romani dialects. So I found not translated, but the original text, a Bible text. Then I found the original Bible from which the Calderaș text is translated from. And then I translated the original Romanian Bible, and then I matched the verses, Calderaș verses, vis-a-vis the English verse, which is translated from Romani. So eventually, that complicated looking picture gave me 2,000 aligned sentence pairs. I manually prepared all of them. I cleaned the text. I formatted them, and I paired them. I prepared all of them for AI to process it. It is not just simply copy paste the text and AI will read it. It is not so. AI likes proper texts, cleaned of even brackets. Are in the original text you may have brackets, and in the translation you don't have this brackets. It's all corrupt. It will not work. Eventually, what I can tell you is that it is now, I am still not finished with the model development, but I have proof of concept. I could run multiple training cycles on this model, 7 training cycles, and I fine-tuned it, its architecture to perfect its translating capacity. And eventually the result is an approximate translation with garbled words around it. So I don't have a perfect translation. The model is far from being perfect, but it is sounding something like this. If the original says it is good to work and have a home, and my translation AI says it is good make job and be inside house sky. So there is still a way to go, but it is translating. It tries to do. And I want to emphasize this. I said I had 2,000 sentence pairs to train on. This is a very small sample. If you want to have an operating fine-tunable model, you have to have at least 10,000 sentence pairs. So I have 2,000 to train on, which is very little to perfect the AI model which I work on. So I need more sentence pairs in original and in English to develop perfecting this AI which I'm working on. So I can say that this is a threshold that I could even produce a garbled, maybe even nonsensical translation. That proves that an AI system could be taught to recognize structure and meaning in Kalderash. And then after my training and this garbled result, I entered into debugging loop. That means refining data formats, adjusting parameters, and troubleshooting model behavior. This is a long process of trying this and that to get it working. But as I said, I have too little samples. The 2,000 word sentence pairs are too little. So even though a fully fluent translation model has not yet emerged, the foundational architecture is in place. The data pipeline is functional, training environment is established, the data set, though modest in size, is the result of deliberate linguistic alignment and structural work. So the early stage of this model does not reveal fluency, but shows evidence of linguistic traction, partial translations, and sometimes false coherence, all of which offer valuable insights into how the model is learning the dynamics of Kalderash Romani. So, and
Presentation again, Hussein. Presentation again doesn't move.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just not too good with the PPTs. And okay, so I achieved this development stage with a single computer. and it is the lower end of technology which you can work on AI development. It is not, well, standard computers or laptops we are using will not work in AI, custom-made AI development. Their power is not good enough, the processing power. So I am using a lower end technology which can work on AI development. And with this, I could achieve development of this stage of AI. What is next? To build a robust, culturally grounded AI infrastructure for Roma languages, we need both intra-dialect training, this is depth, and the breadth, cross-dialect modeling. It is not just computing power. As I said, technology is very important. The machine we are using for developing AI needs to be strong technologically. But we need sustained institutional support, collaborative data work, iterative modeling cycles, each step grounded in linguistic realism and historical awareness. And again, technicalities of this development process, the level I reached at would require, if you commission to this some AI company, if you ever find them, or AI engineer, this would take about 100 hours of work, the level which I am at now. And again, this early proof of concept would cost you, if you commission this, around from 10,000 euros to 15,000 euros. This doesn't include the computing costs, because AI just cannot be produced only on your own computer, even if it's a strong one, but it requires also some online computing access that also costs in terms of memberships and so forth. So to build fully functional, ethically grounded translation and transcription tools for Romani dialects, I think the path toward is clear. There's a path to work on, and I see that with my practical results. But resources are needed. Okay, if you would ask what is practically needed for a creation of viable and scalable AI structure for Romani dialects, and it is doable. I see that it is possible. We need a clean, aligned corpora of text and speech, dialect-specific and culturally grounded. We need a transcribed speech by dialects, and we need collaboration here. Language knowledge is important. Manual alignment and validation, as I said, all these sentence pairs and transcription from audio video requires alignment, heavy human involvement. And this requires, again, a labor and partnership. Obviously, there's a need for targeted research funding to support fine-tuning, evaluation, and model development across dialects. Reliable access to AI development technological infrastructure, whether through institutional compute grants or shared AI-led resources. I think this is a buildable system based on work already underway, but like all meaningful interventions in minoritized language work, this will not succeed on technological merit alone. It requires commitment from institutions, urgency from funders, and willingness to invest in future of a study field. In final words, I want to emphasize that the model, if we have these conditions, the model that will be developed will be clear, executable, and that can be extended, scaled according to needs and can be shared. And I am asking for further discussion between us. If you find this timely, to build a new infrastructure for Romani studies. Thank you. This is all I have to bother you with today.
Thank you, Hussein. And if someone has questions, because I have a bunch of questions. So first, if no one wants to ask, I will ask you to clarify. If we already have the text or the video with transcription and translation, in this case, why do we need AI? I mean, what else AI can propose us if already we have the text, transcription and translation?
Okay. Yeah, I am not muted. Here is the first thing. To be able to train AI, we need these samples to feed into the system so that AI learns. After AI learns, we don't need the transcriptions anymore. AI transcribes. So in the beginning, we need human effort to have proper, clean transcriptions, good enough to have AI running. And then we don't need anymore that human involvement in transcribing or providing the data sets. This is kind of a critical point. There's a moment where AI matures up and learns and acts within your research interests, however you designed and for what you design it for. After that moment, you just feed in your resource for your research, and AI will process it according to your research agenda.
So it means that you train on a specific dialect AI, and then you upload everything without translation and transcription of that specific dialect, and AI transcribes and translates. And this is the function, or we have more functions of AI. And then Stefan also raised his hand.
Okay, so we have multiple functions we can talk about, and these functions are pretty much can be multidimensional. We can do lexical drift analysis, for example, if we are doing discourse analysis. We can do narrative arc extraction. We can do thematic tagging, emotion detection, and narrative segmentation. There are many ways we can design our custom-made AI. So you will have your research agenda. I will have this research agenda priorities in my hand, and I will custom tune the model for your research. And the process is not very straightforward. It is not like grounding meat. So whatever you feed into the system, it doesn't take as such. Again, for example, narrative analysis, the text after transcription, we first transcribe it into the language of research, if it is English. Then in English language, the original text is worked on for tagging, for what we are training the AI model on. So tagging, if we are interested to look at emotions, we are sampling emotion suggesting vocabulary in the text. And I use this as a training sample, not the entire research material, but the samples out of this. We just tag for what we look for. I feed this into the AI model. AI model learns what emotional vocabulary we are after. And then you feed in, I don't know, your 100, 500 testimonies, for example, and AI will process this according to your research priorities. It will look for emotions. It will look for narrative patterns. For example, if there's trauma involved, trauma tagging will be made by a human, and then training, and then processing the rest of the material. until we train the model in a custom-made AI environment, we don't get anything out of AI. First, we have to train it according to our research priorities.
Okay, thanks, Stefan, and then Nathan.
One remark is the issue that you're going to face is the fact that the available material is transcribed in very different ways. Different alphabets, different phonetical representations, and thus complicating the machine learning task, essentially. You have some very good dictionaries, especially for Calderasha, but again, so you can understand every single word, but not necessarily the sentence, because most of the people who actually sampled these languages didn't really speak it and didn't get the the crux of it. My favorite example is in the Balkan, on Balkan dialects, they say that people were under the bridge, which is a very simple, comes from a paramisia where God was distributing brains and some people were under the bridge when it happened. So semantically, it's an idiot. But if you don't know the paramisia, it's very difficult to get that from vocabulary. So contrary to other languages where I think AI is really very good, for those borderline languages, we have a problem. And it's not an easy one to solve.
I see what you are saying, and I understand completely the complications. Here, I think what is essential is a reliable source for the language, a linguist, a speaker that needs to be consulted for the training material. Once the model is trained on one version, and then we start training the model on other dialects. Eventually, if we can mark and show what is discrepancy, what is misfitting, or what is sub-dialect, dialect of a subgroup, then AI will start codifying differently the variations. But it is a process. I see problems there, and human involvement in this process is vital. Without we checking it, without language speakers checking and feeding the feedback into the AI model, we cannot get it done. But eventually, a mature AI will understand variations. It will take time, effort, but it will see the variations, even the subgroup, even.
I think you will have problems with Calderasha.
Well,
I speak Calderasha relatively well, and
I cannot.
They are at least, I know 10 different variations of Calderasha, and Roma themselves, even the native speakers, one of my favorite speaker who can tell paramisia for hours, etc. He's not consistent sometimes in his own language.
I totally
Phonetically
understand.
not consistent.
I'm not going to defend Calderash for
no, I'm just saying it's the
other...
most studied language. It's one of the most bespoke languages, Roma languages, but it's the most studied one. But to give you an example, in Romanesque, with him you can say lesa, or which is le, and but some groups and some dialects have a tendency to put a H instead of so leha instead of lesa. And Calderasha can be once saying leha and once the same speaker. In one sentence he will say leha, the other sentence he will say lesa. So consistency is a real challenge. We've transcribed a few texts with Lev Cherenkov, and it was really challenging in some of the dialects because you have all those phonetical switches. Typical one also, and that's with all Roma, linai, nilai. So depending, it's both summer and it's just an inversion of two syllables, it's very common. So it makes it really difficult to get coherent sources as such.
Well, the coherence may not be the most essential part. The model can be trained on variations. It can be shown different ways how people formulate, or it is with H or without H, so it can be trained on this. Yes, it is. Well, as everything takes time, costs time, but it is not. I cannot say that it is technologically impossible.
Have you
It is
checked? Because
possible.
I know that, I mean, I know that Google has been working on Google Translate has actually a model of Romanes, which is a mixture, a mishmash of different dialects, mostly Vlach related ones when you use the sentences. But they've done quite a bit of work already on it. But they've also worked on other languages which are not really well spoken, or so with not a large speaker minority, large group of speakers or material. So I think it would be interesting to see what they have done in those cases.
Well, as far as I can see, there is no open data set. Maybe there is something somewhere hiding. For languages spoken by many people, there are data sets. So some people created data sets. It's free of access. You can just access it and train the AI on these data sets. But for Romani dialects, I couldn't find. Maybe there is somewhere. I may not have found it, but problem is the data set. And I am not sure if Google indeed will invest time and effort into this, or if they have the resources, proper resources.
Try Google Translate. It's not bad.
I will have a look. I will see what it does.
I said it's a mishmash of dialects, but it's actually quite good. You can trick it very easily, but for straightforward sentences, you can translate both ways fairly easily.
Well, maybe on translation level, it may succeed
Yeah.
reading different dialects. But again, a custom design AI gives you research tool,
No, that's absolutely
which
clear.
Google Translate will never give you.
No, but they've done something on some materials. They must have had some materials from somewhere.
Sure. Without that data sets, they will never
Yeah.
get something running. I'm sure they got some data.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, you wanted to ask something or?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. It sounds very interesting, and I really don't know much about the AI, the process of AI training and so on, except that I, of course, have heard that it takes an incredible amount of compute, right? They're always saying that's where all the compute is. So, I guess my question basically is, if you have a data set, right, a very good data set, I don't know, 10,000 lines or whatever, and I guess it needs further annotation if it's going to do things. It sounded like some of what you were talking about would be related to intonation or emotional. Maybe it's tagging just to the language, but I would think it would need to sort of capture something about intonation and things like this. But anyway, that's all, things that I don't know anything about. And it would be where Google, hasn't, as far as I know, tried to do that kind of thing. But what I'm curious about is if it takes a lot of, powerful computing to get this data set turned into a model. I mean, isn't that one of the big barriers to any project that's not done with lots of computing resources? And what's sort of the accessibility of computing resources in terms of, like universities and so on? Do they have they moved in the direction of trying to say, yeah, you need to have this kind of available and we can share it, or you can book time on it or something like this, or does everyone, like, does your plan think, okay, we need to build our own whatever it is, NVIDIA or whatever model? What is it called when it's doing the model building,
Yeah.
the processing? What's the sort of resources and the schedule for resources, and the like, if you're creating a budget for a grant, I mean, that must be the big chunk. So I'm just wondering how you would see that working.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is very practical issue to have a look at what we actually need. I prefer to work on a personal computer.
Yeah.
In this case, you cut down, well, you don't need to pay for memberships for cloud processing instead of, well, however, okay, just for practicality, I will just tell you, there is a server, a computer sitting in a huge hangar or something with 1,000 other servers.
Yeah.
And the membership gives you using the processing power of that provider. You remotely put your data in, that computer processes it, gives you back the data. You pay for the amount of the data processing. So they charge by the bits, and sometimes they are called tokens. So it depends, the cost will depend on how much you are processing. But a personal computer, as I said, mine is on the lower end. It is about $800 USD. But if you have $5,000-$6,000 to invest on one computer, pretty much you don't need these memberships. A good laptop, as I said, around $6,000 will do the job. And for this level, which I achieved, I didn't even need that. But again, my data set is too small. It is little to process. The much of the computing power is needed for the training. Scripting, developing the architecture is low computing source requiring process. Training is the what is called the GPU processing. And the GPU is something like the old-timers RAM, how much data can be processed. And this is mostly found in the gaming computers. They need large processing this is graphic processing unit, GPU. So this is what is necessary in computers to process. But again, for example, I worked on one model for this presentation, and I have 8 GPU. Actually, and it says, oh, if you had 26, we could have done this. So I had to downsize the processing bits, chunks, cut it down, takes longer. Technically, it's a little bit more complicated. And again, whatever you do, you are limited by the size of data processing. In this case, you have to pay for and outsource your processing. Yeah.
So if you have more processor power, you can have, okay, there's it can go faster, but there's also, like you said, if it had 26 GPU, does that mean that it would also be a more accurate model? Is the resulting model improved even though you have 2,000 lines, or do you have to go up in the amount of data you put in addition to make it more accurate?
No, the accuracy of the results is about the design itself, about the architecture and the code. The processing power is related to amount of data you can process. If you have low GPU, certain amounts will not be processed ever. As I said, if the GPU is good for a certain amount, then it will work. In this case, it may take longer
Mhm.
if you have a low GPU.
Yeah.
So its time cost increases. So first dimension to summarize is the bunch you can process. If it is beyond GPU, it will not process at all. It will try to cut it down into chunks, and that may not be successful. And in most cases, larger data sets will not be processed. Second, if it starts processing, then it will take longer.
Yeah.
But the accuracy is not related to this.
Mhm.
Okay, can we take a couple of more minutes? If we talk about Romani dialects, I understand there are complications, even though Google will not help, because, Stefan, Google has very limited amount of data, like one paragraph you can insert for pretty much good translation. We talk about massive data and also video data, which Google cannot translate at all. But here is another question. If we put aside Calderash dialects, and we talk about interviews, for instance, recorded in Romanian, Italian, or so on, or texts, then how much we can succeed? For instance, if I refer to your presentation last year about Moldova and discourse about the Roma and the genocide of Roma. And we have three languages there: Romanian, English, and mainly Russian, right? So how you can apply AI in terms of research for known languages?
With the mostly the languages which have larger speakership, these are rather easier to work. It is much faster to develop a model and train it. Language data sets are already ready. As I said, with Romani dialects, the issue is about the data set to train on. So if you have, let's say, Romanian text to work on and process for a certain research agenda, then it is much easier. If you have mix of languages in one text, it can happen a mix. In this case, you model for your expected languages. You may not know all your data. Let's say testimony can be spoken in Ukrainian, Russian, and Romani. In this case, you have, if you're expecting this to happen, or if you want to take measures, you develop your AI model hosting three language processing, or four, or five. In this case, it is about the development becomes more complicated. It's a complex process to train AI on multiple languages, but it is perfectly doable. It is about how much time you spend developing it. But it is technically possible to train on triple, quadruple languages, and it will read and find and locate this language transitions. And even you can train on if it is kind of a surjik, if it is a mixed invented language. And if you can have enough sampling of this, it may train on the logic of mixing languages. I don't know if I could address correctly or fully to your question.
Hi everyone. Hussein, thank you for your presentation. I'm not very good in these topics, so I try to understand and I try to ask you if you, during your work, you use also alphabetic translation. Phonetic translation. And if this type of translation can help for all these cases that we are talking about. I am asking this because I'm part of a project now in Italy made by University of Milan. It's a project about language minorities in Italy. And we are trying to we recorded different Romani dialect, but also mixed language, Italian dialect and Romani, because we have a lot of different manner to speak about in our Sinti and Roma community. And what the chief decides. So the project is about this. Someone record, and for example, I translated in Italian. But after this, another person, trained by a linguistic student or professor, translate into phonetical alphabet. And this is just for be sure about pronunciation and all these topics. But you need a person who is able to do this. That is not very simple. You use this, or you think that could be useful or not, because in this case, I understand that the translation that you use is in English or Romanian or Russian. And I'm interested in this because of this project. We are discussing about this here in Italy.
Thank you, Paula. I did not experiment the particular function you are talking about. So I didn't experiment myself, but I think, as I said, multiple languages, once we have the transcription in the target language, Italian or English or whatever language we want, then we can, from audio recording, from video recording, we can train the AI to transcribe and then translate by itself without human involvement. Just to feed in, you need to feed in the document and it will process. In terms of other functions like phonetical, you can have the codification. You give the AI the rules, how it has to function. You train on that function. And technically, I believe it is possible, but I can check for you more details if there is any concerns. But technically, it doesn't sound to me a problematic issue which cannot be done. Only you need to give the rules how AI is to work on, and you may, besides, in addition to rules, you may need to show, for example, a linguist, as you said, working on this phonetical processing. If you feed it enough samples, how it is done by humans, AI can be trained on data, and it can start doing it without human involvement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? I mean, we're a little bit behind the time, and I think we should finish. But if you have any comments or questions, Hussein's email is in the email list visible. So you can reach him, his personal email, University of Alberta, or his email of his affiliation, Uppsala University, Institute for Russian and Eurasian Studies. And I think it's interesting conversation, and we can continue that. And what I can say is, like, thank you so much everyone who attended, and those who messaged me but couldn't attend, and those who attended during the entire year. Thank you, Stefan, for co-organizing and technically support our meetings. And hopefully we will continue next academic year starting from October, and we have to think maybe we will change something, because this year, academic year, we mostly try to reach Romani communities, and we had very many presentations, mainly from the Romani communities, like last month from Ukraine. Finally, Natalia Tomenko could present about her organization and Roma in Ukraine, and we had only a few academic presentations, two of them Paula's book, new book, and the journal Etude Tsegan, which I edited, and Hussein's presentation is basically not presentation of the book, but only the research presentation in this academic year. So we will see how we will continue next year, but in the plans also the organization of the conference, and which we discuss with Stefan, probably it may happen. So I will keep you posted, and please be in touch, and thank you so much again for everyone.
Thank you to everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.